This is Stranded, the Australian-Canadian music show, and you just heard there the exquisite sounds of Nervous Doll Dancing, featuring the cello playing of Francesca Mountfort. She is a native of Wellington, New Zealand, and she has been performing around the Fringe Theatre Festival circuit of late with a show that she is calling Eidolon, which is a Greek term. You'll learn about what that is in the upcoming interview here. So I chatted with Francesca this afternoon, and we've got a two-part interview right now. And I asked her all about, well, first of all, what the cello is all about, and then we talk about the show that you can experience tonight. There's still time tonight or tomorrow night. If you're in Vancouver, you can go down to Commercial Drive, 1212 Commercial Drive at the Havana restaurant and catch this really, really fascinating act. You're not going to hear anything like this out in the city tonight, I wouldn't think, particularly given it has an interesting multimedia component. So let's get into the chat now. This is Francesca Mountfort, a New Zealander. All right, so here we are on Stranded, the Australian-Canadian music show, and I'm speaking with Francesca Mountfort, who is a New Zealander. Of course, we do feature music from New Zealand, and it's always a treat to chat with someone, a native of that amazing country. Francesca, you're here in Vancouver already for your run of shows. Yeah, we had our first show last night. Oh, brilliant! It's kind of a really neat kind of restaurant venue, isn't it? Called the Havana Theatre, is that right? Yeah, Havana Restaurant. They've got a little 60-seater theatre out the back. It's got a really great vibe. And that's on Commercial Drive here in Vancouver. And so you recommend, if for people who are excited about what they hear today, do you recommend they get there pretty early to get dinner and things like that? Yeah, I recommend going there for dinner. It's a really popular restaurant, so yeah, definitely. Okay. So yeah, Havana Theatre. We'll remind the listeners again at the end of this interview, but let's talk about what you can expect. So Francesca is a cellist, and she is bringing her amazing musicianship along with a multimedia show as well, including puppetry and a projection of really fascinating images. I wanted to talk first, go right back though to the cello. The instrument itself is so rare on this show generally I play rock and roll, but to get such a refined instrument and sound is really cool here. What is the cello instrument, and in particular, can you talk a little bit about music theory and how it's tuned in perfect fifths? I'm learning the guitar now, and my teacher actually mentioned that yesterday. He said, the guitar is tuned this way, but the cello is tuned in perfect fifths. So yeah. I'm like, what does that mean? I don't know what it means, but what I really like about the tuning of the cello is that you can get these really open sounding chords, really, because of perfect fifths, it's really pure sounding. So I like to play around with, I guess, sounds that sound a little bit ancient. I like to play with ancient modes and, like medieval music, and it doesn't really sound medieval music, but it has that kind of aesthetic with, I guess, because that's what you can do. Well, that's what I like to do with the open tuning of the cello. Other cellists like to kind of use the open fifths to get power chords and that kind of thing. That's not so much my style, but yeah. Oh wow! And what did inform your style? Like early influences in teaching, things like that, or how did your sensibilities slowly evolve? I don't know. It just happened by itself, really. I'm classically trained, and I was at university studying the cello, and the stress of studying classical cello just kind of got the better of me, really, and I ended up having RSI problems, or tension in my wrists and that sort of thing, and I had to stop playing, and I ended up just sort of meeting other musicians and just jamming with them and kind of finding my own style through that. And I at university I started doing a paper called electroacoustic composition. So you're doing making these compositions with sound samples and recordings and learning to use a studio. And so I just ended up kind of recording the cello and playing around with the cello in my voice and sampling it. And I just kind of,
my style just evolved really from that.
Oh, that's fascinating, and definitely, you know, that individual artist within you was just waiting to come out at some point, and that training gave you the foundations, and then you sprung from there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's really important playing an instrument like the cello to have that kind of classical training, because it gives you the foundation. But what a lot of classical musicians, what tends to happen is that they kind of, because you're always being told what to play and you're reading music, and you're sort of, unless you are reading music or memorizing, you know, a lot of players don't really know how to expand from that. And it's sort of, you know, it takes time to learn about that. So I've found when I started jamming with other musicians, I had no idea about just simple song structures and chord structures and things like that. I had no understanding of that, but you just kind of learn as you go, you know, and yeah.
Oh, wow. And do you find with your sensibility and your unique sound that and when you go to Europe, that you feel at home there? It's interesting to hear a more refined, subtle sound come out. Europe has a longer history of course, this sort of music. In particular, how did you find being in Prague?
Oh, Prague was great, yeah. And we're going to go back to Europe next year and do a lot of touring there. Yeah, Canada's had its challenges. It's been great. We've actually been touring the Fringe festivals. And that's also been interesting because the Fringe festivals here are really theatre-based. And though our show is theatrical, it's music and projection, you know, it's music and multimedia. So it's kind of been a difficult sell in that context. Prague, it's funny because our show, well, my music, it's always had a history of combining music boxes and antique chiming clocks, and they're always incorporated, those sounds are always incorporated in the shows. And our show, it has a lot of timepieces with clocks and strange dolls and music boxes and puppets. And so when we played in Prague, people thought that we'd catered the show for Prague because there's so much of that there.
Yeah.
But it was just coincidence, really. But I'm really looking forward to going back to Europe. I feel like there's definitely a place, well, I hope there's a place for my music there. I'm just touring independently, and we're doing everything ourselves, so, you know, you come across your challenges with trying to get people to the shows and trying to get the word out as best you can. And yeah, so it's been challenging in Canada for that, I've found, but yeah, you've just got to do it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And the people that come are just going to have a completely fresh experience. That's what I've experienced just sitting here in the studio listening to your record here. And of course this is only part of it, because the other 2/3 of the show are the puppetry and the projection.
Yeah.
So you have a gentleman named Tom Hume, who is a projectionist, and Marissa Fior. She's a puppeteer, is that correct?
Yeah, Marissa's not actually on tour with us, so all the puppets, she made all the puppets, but all the puppets are animations. But we've made films and animations, and the way we project, it's not projection in your traditional sense. We use we have multiple projections, and we project onto different surfaces and objects, and the objects aren't necessarily flat surfaces. So the puppets can kind of they really have this disembodied kind of effect, and they kind of bend around these objects that they're contained in, and so they kind of look like they're really there in the space with you. It's really cool. Is
it sort of like a hologram kind of effect?
Kind of. Yeah, some of them are. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow, that does sound fascinating. I'm glad you described it that way, because I hadn't even realised that was possible. It sounds fascinating. The album is called Eidolon, and the same title of the show.
Yeah.
And that's spelled Eidolon for the listeners, and it's a Greek term. It refers to a ghost or an apparition, is that?
Yeah, it means apparition. It's quite a broad. My understanding of it is it's quite has quite a broad meaning, but yeah, it means apparition or spirit or phantom, and I named it that because when we were developing the show, we were sort of playing with the idea of, transparency and making the images and the puppets look kind of transparent and ghostly. And so, yeah, I stumbled across the term Eidolon, and I thought it fitted perfectly with with the effects that we were creating and with the music as well.
Yeah, definitely. I can sense that through listening, and it is. I was just wondering, like, with a performance like this, I can imagine people taken from whatever angle the music's going to hit from where they're at emotionally, because there's no lyrics, there's no even talking. You don't even talk for the whole show. So that sets a particular tone, and that people could take whichever way. But at the same time, is there an underlying narrative that you are conscious of as you're playing?
Definitely, there's definitely a narrative, but it's quite it's a narrative on quite a subtle level. So the idea is, and what we've heard from people who have seen the show, they sort of say that they feel kind of transported. It's like sort of being transported into this other world for an hour. And people have said it's like a dream, like it seems like nothing makes sense, but somehow it all does make sense, we like the fact that it definitely has meaning and narrative, but we don't want to sort of bombard people with, this is what it means, this is the story. We want it to be more an experience that people can kind of take away their own experience and interpretation from it. And so, and that's the feedback we get. And some people, find people have different experience of it. Some people say, oh, it's quite dark and almost the music's almost a little bit traumatic. But then other people say, oh, it's beautiful and uplifting and dreamy. And some people, a lot of the time, people say that they kind of feel a little tear welling in their eyes. Not that it's sad, but it's just it's an emotional experience, and people come away from it feeling quite different. So that's nice when you hear that from people. You feel like, oh, it's we're doing this for a reason. It's working. People are actually feeling something and taking something personal away from this, and so it kind of makes it all worthwhile.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely, highly recommend folks check out this show. It's Nervous Doll Dancing, name of the show. Oh, Eidolon is the name of the show.
It's a bit confusing.
Yeah.
So basically, I play and produce music under the name Nervous Doll Dancing. I've been Nervous Doll Dancing for about 10 years now, and so I've got 3 albums under the name of Nervous Doll Dancing. We've got a website, Facebook, all that kind of thing. And within the context of Nervous Doll Dancing, we have these different shows, because there's been lots of different stages of Nervous Doll Dancing where I've had different shows that have had dance or shadow puppetry or live puppetry, and so this is the latest stage, which we call Eidolon.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And, of course, I couldn't let you go without talking a little bit about New Zealand, because it's always wonderful to hear a Kiwi accent on the other end of the phone. And I just thought of Kiwi film. I mean, everyone, in the last 10 years is beginning to associate New Zealand with the Lord of the Rings phenomenon. And listening to your music, I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is like ideal music for a soundtrack for a really smart independent film. Have you done any film work, or if not, are there any other films that you would recommend from New Zealand, like great independent films that the world just doesn't know about, because we just think of Lord of the Rings? And
God, I mean, there's great films coming out of New Zealand. I don't think I could actually name one, but if you go to, what is it New Zealand On Air or New Zealand Short Films, there's so many short films, great short films that come out of New Zealand. I think it's just New Zealand Short Films. I think if you just Google that, you should be able to find them. I can't be of more help. I mean, we've actually, Tom and I, we've watched a lot of animations, and one of the reasons we came to Canada was because we've watched a lot of great animations that have come out of Montreal. And they've always got amazing soundtracks. And one of the filmmakers we've discovered on the way is actually a Russian animator called Norstein. I can't remember his first name, but he uses puppets, and they're just the most beautiful experience. And they're based on really simple fables, and they're just gorgeous. I recommend. But sorry, I can't recommend any New Zealand.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
So I haven't actually, as much as I love New Zealand, I actually haven't lived there for 7 years. I've been living in Melbourne, Australia for the past 7 years, and I always try to go back to New Zealand and play every couple of years. I'm from Wellington, so I always try to go back there and play. Yeah. And
Wellington's a great city. I recommend listeners, if you ever get a chance to visit. It's a very livable place, it seems like.
Yeah, and there's so many creative people there, and lots of great music that comes out of Wellington.